A young servant girl walks into Glasgow with a name in her mouth and a secret in her pocket, and within days men in suits are whispering about a bank collapsing. If she's lying, she's finished. But if she's telling the truth, someone powerful wants her silent. By the end, you'll understand how Jessie McLachlan became the hinge point in a plot aimed at the heart of Glasgow's money, and how class, trust, and fear shaped what people believed about her. Because when a bank wobbles, wages vanish, savings burn, and blame hunts for the easiest body to carry it, and in a city built on respectability, a servant girl is the easiest target in the room. Was Jessie McLachlan a conspirator trying to crack a bank, or the messenger used and discarded by people who knew exactly how the system punishes girls like her? The cab wheels rattle over the stones as Glasgow wakes up. A young servant sits stiffly on the seat. Her hands are tucked under her shawl. Her eyes keep cutting to the bag at her feet. Inside that bag, there is something that can ruin her. Ahead, the bank doors stand open. Ahead, the bank doors stand open. Clerks in ink-stained cuffs move like clockwork. A guard glances up, then away. The servant steps down. She hesitates, just long enough to look like she is listening for someone behind her. Then she walks in. She reaches the counter and says she has been sent with a deposit. The clerk takes the bag. He feels the weight. He frowns, because the coins inside do not sound right. Outside, across the street, a woman watches from the crowd. Her face is calm. Her bonnet is plain. Her name is Jessie McLachlan. And if the clerk opens the bag the wrong way, this whole plot ends here. But if he does what Jessie is counting on, the servant will walk out clean. So what exactly is in that bag? And why did Jessie choose a servant to carry it? To understand the bag, you have to understand the city. Glasgow is loud in those days. Smoke hangs over the roofs. The river carries ships and soot. Money moves fast here. Wages, rents, loans, promises. Banks are not marble temples yet. They are working places, busy places. Places where men glance at faces and assume they can read them. Jessie McLachlan understands that. She understands what people see when a servant comes to the counter. They see someone who does errands, someone who follows orders, someone who does not invent stories, and they see someone who is easy to blame. Jessie is not a servant. Jessie is a woman with time to watch and patience to plan. She can stand in a crowd and be invisible. She can learn which clerk is careless and which manager hates fuss. And she can learn which hour of the day makes men hurry. But Jessie does not walk into the bank herself. She sends someone else. So where did Jessie come from? And how did she find the person she could send in her place? The servant has a name too. In the records, she will be described in flat terms. Age, address, employer. But in real life, she is a person with a kitchen to scrub and a bell to answer. She lives in other people's rooms. She eats when she is told. She is watched when she walks. And she learns early that survival is a kind of silence. That silence is what Jessie needs. Jessie does not need a partner who asks questions. She needs someone who can be instructed, someone who can be made to believe this is only an errand, or someone who can be frightened into thinking there is no other choice. Because a servant's life is all narrow corridors. A wrong step brings consequences. A bad reference ends your chances. A rumor follows you from house to house. Jessie understands the pressure points. She uses them. But did the servant agree because she trusted Jessie, or because Jessie left her no room to refuse? Before anyone talks about Jessie's guilt, ask the simpler question. Who first decided her story was dangerous enough to report? And what did that person stand to gain by making her the center of it? Forget Jessie for a moment. Imagine you're a bank director hearing a whisper that could trigger a run, and the next decision you make will tell us who you really fear. Back at the counter, the clerk weighs the bag again. He is not sure what bothers him. The sound is wrong. The heft is off. Or maybe it is the servant's eyes. She is trying to look ordinary. That is always the tell. People who are innocent do not try this hard. The clerk asks where the money came from. The servant repeats the line she has been given. A name. An address. A reason it must be deposited today. The clerk nods. He reaches for the book. He starts to write. This is the moment Jessie is buying. If the entry goes into the ledger, it becomes real. Ink gives weight to lies. But banks have their own rhythms. Sometimes a manager strolls past. Sometimes a manager strolls past. Sometimes a second clerk listens. Sometimes someone decides for no reason at all to check the bag. The servant can feel the air changing. She clears her throat. She tries to hurry the process. And in that small movement, in that small push towards speed, the clerk's suspicion sharpens. So what does he do next, and how quickly does Jessie realize the plan is starting to break? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. The bank wasn't robbed with a gun. It was threatened with words, signatures, and trust. So who had the credibility to make a financial lie feel true? Across the street, Jessie sees the servant stop moving. That is enough. You can read a situation from posture, from the way a body goes still, from the way a head turns too often. Jessie's heart does not show on her face. She has practiced this. She has stood near markets and watched men count coins. She has listened to talk in lodging houses. She has learned which stories make people curious and which stories make them afraid. Now she watches the bank door. She needs the servant to come back out. She needs the clerk to accept the bag. She needs everything to stay simple. But simple is fragile. Because there is always a person inside who wants to be thorough. A person who wants to feel important. A person who has been warned about fraud. Jessie shifts her weight. She takes 2 steps as if she might cross. Then she stops. If she goes in, she becomes part of the scene. If she stays out, she still has options. Jessie is gambling on distance. The servant is gambling on obedience. And the bank is gambling on trust. But which of them will blink first? Jessie didn't walk into a courtroom with evidence. She walked in with a reputation. Why did the entire case start acting like her character was the crime? Inside, the clerk makes a decision. He does not hand a receipt back. He does not close the book. Instead, he says he must check something. He takes the bag away from the counter. The servant's hands clench. She watches him walk toward a side desk. A second clerk looks up. A small exchange of glances happens. It is quiet. It is polite. But it changes everything. The servant feels the trap forming. She thinks about leaving. She thinks about graving the bag. She thinks about the exact words Jessie used, and she realizes she does not know what is in it. Not really. Because Jessie did not want her to know. Jessie wanted her to carry, not to understand. The clerk loosens the ties. He opens the mouth of the bag. He reaches inside. And his face changes. So what does he find? And what does that discovery set in motion? If this was really a grand plot, why does the timeline keep shrinking every time we check it? And who benefits when the dates get fuzzy? Now strip out every accusation and keep only the dates, because the calendar reveals a gap that someone needed you not to notice. The first thing to understand about a con is that it does not begin at the bank. It begins in a room where someone speaks softly. It begins with a need. Jessie meets people in ordinary places. Stairwells, washhouses, doorways where servants wait for errands. She does not pitch a crime. She pitches a solution. A way to get ahead. A way to settle a debt. A way to avoid disgrace. She makes it sound like a shortcut the world owes you, and then she makes it sound like it is already half done. All that remains is one small task, one walk, one delivery, one sentence at a counter. The servant hears that, and she hears that Shane's something else too. She hears that Jessie has power, not legal power, social power. The power of knowing names, the power of knowing who will talk, and who will believe. The servant's life is made of other people's judgments. Jessie offers a way to steer them. But was Jessie offering hope? Or was she building leverage? One conversation is said to have set everything in motion, yet no two witnesses remember it the same way. So which version was built to be believed, and which one was buried? When the clerk reaches into the bag, he expects coins. Instead, he finds the wrong metal. Or the right metal, shaped the wrong way. It might be tokens. It might be slugs. It might be something meant to imitate money just long enough to pass a glance. He taps a piece on the desk. The sound is dead. He picks up another. He looks for the stamp. The servant's breath catches. She knows the clerk knows. Now the room is full of a new kind of attention. A manager is called. Voices drop. The servant stands alone at the counter, as if the floor has widened around her. The manager asks questions. Where did you get this? Who sent you? What is the name? The servant repeats Jessie's words. But repetition sounds different under pressure. It starts to sound like a lesson. The manager tells the clerk to fetch a constable. In that instant, the servant understands what Jessie has done. Jessie has placed the danger in her hands. Jessie has stayed outside. So does the servant hold the line, or does she break and name Jessie? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. Jessie is described as both naive and calculating, too simple to understand banking and clever enough to destroy it. Which of those portraits was useful to the prosecution, and why did they need both? Let's switch rooms, from the courtroom to the kitchen, because the most important witness in this story never wore a suit. Outside, Jessie sees movement at the bank door. Not the servant, someone else. A man in uniform. A constable. Jessie does not run. Running makes you visible. She turns as if she has simply changed her mind about her errands. She blends into the street, but she is not safe. Because Glasgow is not endless. Because people talk. Because Jessie's kind of work depends on anonymity, and anonymity is a thin coat. Jessie heads toward a familiar route. A lane that will put her among carts and noise, a place where faces pass fast. But she keeps listening. For quick steps behind her. For her own name. For the shout that means the game is up. Inside the bank, the servant is being kept. She is being watched. She is being asked again and again, and every time she answers, Jessie's name gets closer to the air. So how long can Jessie stay ahead of a story that is already beginning to spread? Interrogation is not always shouting. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is the steady wearing down of a person who has never been allowed to argue. The servant sits on a chair that is too hard. A clerk offers her water, not out of kindness, but to keep her there. A constable arrives and asks for her employer. He asks where she sleeps. He asks whether she can write. Each question is a net. The servant realizes she has no good answer. If she admits she was tricked, she looks foolish. If she insists she was innocent, she looks rehearsed. If she names Jessie, she becomes a witness. And witnesses do not always get thanked. But she also understands something else. Jessie can walk away. Jessie can find another servant. Jessie can build another story. The servant is the one who is trapped in this room, so she makes a choice. Not a brave choice. A practical choice. She begins to talk about the woman outside. The woman who watched. The woman who told her what to say. The woman named Jessie McLachlan. But will anyone believe a servant's word against a woman who knows how to look respectable? If Jessie was just a servant, how did she end up linked to men who moved money like chess pieces? And who introduced her to that world first? A constable steps out into the street with a description. Plain bonnet. Calm face. A woman who does not hurry. That last detail is the hardest, because the city is full of women who do not hurry. Still, Glasgow has its own memory. People notice who lingers, who watches, who seems to be waiting for a cue. The constable asks a vendor, then a driver, then a doorman. A thread appears, a direction, a name spoken back with uncertainty. Maybe that was Jessie. Maybe. The constable follows the thread, and Jessie, sensing the change in the air, adjusts her path. She turns corners without looking back. She steps into a shop as if she belongs. She studies her reflection in a window. For a second, she sees herself the way the law might see her. Not clever, not invisible, just caught. So does Jessie disappear into the city, or does the city hand her back to the bank? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. The panic wasn't only about cash, it was about contagion, the fear that rumor could bankrupt reality. So who planted the rumor where it would spread fastest? Listen to how the language changes when Jessie speaks, because one word gets repeated like a verdict, and it points to the real lever of power. There is a moment in every plot where the story becomes evidence. The bag is evidence. The fake coins or tokens are evidence. And now the servant's statement becomes evidence too. A clerk writes down her words. He tries to keep his handwriting neat, because neat writing looks true. The servant watches him and feels her own life being translated into ink. Small details matter. What Jessie wore, what Jessie said, where Jessie stood, how Jessie stood, how Jessie handed over the bag. The servant realizes that memory is slippery, that she could be wrong, and that being wrong can look like lying. So she clings to the strongest detail. Jessie's name. And the way Jessie spoke it, as if she expected it to open doors. The clerk asks if she has ever met Jessie before. The servant pauses, because that answer is a trap. If she says yes, she sounds involved. If she says no, she sounds careless. She chooses a third option. She says she has seen Jessie around. Not met, seen, just enough to make the connection believable. Just enough to make Jessie reachable. But is that truth, or is it the servant trying to save herself with a story that fits? Here's the odd part. The people with the most to lose sound the most certain about Jessie's motives. What if their certainty is the cover, not the proof? Jessie is found the way many people are found. not by brilliance, by routine, by the place she returns to, by someone recognizing her step, by the fact that the poor and the clever still need beds and food. A constable approaches her with polite certainty, questions first, then the hand that guides, not grabs. Jessie keeps her composure. She asks what this is about. She says she has done nothing. She says she has been shopping. It is a reasonable story. It is almost boring, but the constable has the bank's urgency in his pocket. He has the servant's name. He has the bag. He has the dead sound of metal that should have sung. Jessie is brought toward the station. People stare. Not because they know her, because they want to, because an arrest is a kind of street theater. Jessie lifts her chin. She looks like someone being inconvenienced. And that is a weapon too. So when Jessie sits down to be questioned, what does she say to turn the suspicion away from herself? Jessie's first defense is simple. She denies she knows the servant. She denies she has been near the bank. She denies she has touched the bag. Each denial she has touched the bag. Each denial is clean. Each denial is measured. She understands the value of tone. She understands that anger makes you look guilty. So she offers mild confusion. A hint of offense, as if this is all a mistake. But the questions keep coming. Where were you this morning? Who can confirm? What street did you take? What shop? Who served you? Details. Details are where lies sweat. Jessie answers. She builds a timeline. She places herself among ordinary acts. Bread. Thread. Messages. And yet, the servant's story sits across from her like a second person in the room because the servant described Jessie's face. And Jessie knows she has been seen. The interrogator brings up the bank. Jessie's eyes flick. Just once. It is small. But small things become big in a record. The interrogator asks if Jessie has ever used servants for errands. Jessie smiles. Of course, everyone does. And in that smile, there is a crack. Because now she has admitted the concept, so which detail will break first, Jessie's careful timeline, or the servant's fragile memory? At the center of the story is a single name Jessie repeats, sometimes as a warning, sometimes as a shield. Is she naming the mastermind, or naming the person she's terrified of? Here's the twist in plain sight. The supposed plot is messy, but the punishment is precise, and that precision has a designer. The case begins to fall. The bank staff have their account, the servant has hers. The constable has his notes, and Jessie has her denials. Now the question becomes a different one. Not what happened, but what can be proven, because a plot can be obvious and still slip through the law. The bag is examined. The contents are counted. The pieces are compared. Someone with experience says these are not coins, or they are coins altered, or they are objects designed to mimic the look and weight. It is not artistry, it is practical deception. The sort of deception that depends on speed, on courtesy, on the reluctance to cause embarrassment. The bank manager admits something that stings. They are trained to trust a certain look, a certain manner, a certain kind of customer. And Jessie has built her plan around that training. But Jessie's plan also depends on something else. Distance. If she did not enter the bank, can they still tie the attempt to her? And if the servant carried the bag, does that make the servant the criminal in the eyes of the court? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. The case turns on what Jessie allegedly said in private, with no paper trail to rescue her. So why does the evidence keep arriving as hearsay wrapped in confidence? In the days that follow, Glasgow does what Glasgow always does. It talks. Stories move faster than constables. A rumor turns Jessie into a mastermind. Another rumor turns her into a fool. Some say she preyed on servants. Some say the servant was her willing partner. People choose the version that flatters their own fears. For employers, it becomes a warning about staff. For servants, it becomes a warning about promises. For the bank, it becomes a warning about complacency. And for Jessie, it becomes a prison even before a judge speaks. Because reputation is evidence in the court of the street. Jessie hears the murmurs as she is moved from place to place. She holds her expression. But her eyes harden. She is not only fighting a charge, she is fighting a story. The servant, meanwhile, faces her own punishment. Not from the law yet, from the world. People look at her and see trouble. They see someone who brought police to a bank. They see someone who might bring police to a household. And that kind of stain does not wash out easily. So when this reaches court, who will the public want to see punished? The planner or the carrier? If you assume Jessie is lying, the plot makes sense for a minute, until you ask why the supposed ringleaders stay oddly out of reach. So who is the law actually chasing here? Pause the story and picture Glasgow's social ladder, because the next step Jessie takes isn't legal or illegal, it's upward, and that's what makes it unforgivable. Court is a stage with rules. Jessie stands where everyone can see her. The servant stands too, but she is seen differently. One woman is examined as an actor. The other is examined as an object. Questions are asked in careful language. Dates, distances, descriptions. The bank clerk describes the moment the bag felt wrong. He describes the servant's voice. He describes the pause. The manager describes procedure. What should have happened? What usually happens? And what happened this time? Then the servant speaks. She tries to make her words simple. She tries to keep her story straight. Because she knows the defense will not attack Jessie first. It will attack her. It will suggest she is lying. It will suggest she is saving herself. It will suggest she is the true author. And Jessie sits listening, almost still. Jessie lets the servant talk, because every extra sentence is another chance for the servant to contradict herself. So what does Jessie's defense do when the servant points at her and says plainly, she was sent? The defense strategy is familiar. It separates. It divides the story into pieces and asks the court to doubt each one. Yes, the bag was suspicious. Yes, the bank was right to stop the deposit. But who prepared it? Who touched it? Who carried it? Who spoke to the clerk? The defense turns the servant into the center. They ask about her life, her wages, her friendships, her habits. They ask if she has been in trouble before. They ask if she owes money. They ask if she owes money. They ask if she has ever lied to an employer. The servant's cheeks burn, because shame is part of the weapon. Then they ask about Jessie. How well do you know her? How can you be sure? Did she give you her full name? Did anyone hear? Did anyone else see? The servant realizes what is happening. The defense is building fog, and fog is enough sometimes. Jessie, meanwhile, looks almost bored, as if she cannot believe she is being dragged into this. And in that performance, she finds a kind of power. But does the court see through it, or do they see only a servant trying to shift blame upward? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. Watch what happens when we follow the money instead of the scandal. Which accounts, friendships, and favors suddenly make Jessie's story less ridiculous and more threatening. Then comes the question of motive. Why would Jessie do this? Did she need money? Did she have debts? Was she living beyond her means? Or was it something else? A taste for it? A belief that she could? A sense that rules were for other people? The prosecution suggests planning. They suggest Jessie chose a servant because a servant is disposable. The defense suggests coincidence. They suggest a servant may have named Jessie because Jessie is a convenient villain, because Jessie is known, because Jessie is easy to picture. Witnesses are called. People who saw Jessie near the bank. People who saw the servant with a bag. Each witness offers a fragment. No one offers the whole. And that is the nature of crime in a crowd. It happens among ordinary life. It hides behind ordinary movements. The judge listens. The jury watches. And Jessie keeps her posture composed. The servant keeps her hands tight. Two women caught in the same machine. One trying to prove she is uninvolved, the other trying to prove she is not alone. So in the end, which story feels more believable to people who have never lived either life? Whatever the verdict, the damage is already done. If Jessie is convicted, she becomes a lesson, a headline, a cautionary tale about clever women and moral collapse. If Jessie is acquitted, she becomes something else, a ghost story. The woman who nearly did it, the woman who slipped away because the law could not grip her. And the servant. The servant still has to find work. She still has to ask for a reference. She still has to explain why her name is connected to a bank and police. Even if she is treated as a victim, she has been exposed. And exposure is dangerous when your life depends on invisibility. The bank too must change. It will tighten procedures. It will demand more checks. It will train clerks to distrust the very politeness that makes business smooth. That is the quiet legacy of a failed attempt. Not the money lost. The trust strained. Years later, people will still tell the story. Jessie McLachlan, a servant on an errand, a bag that sounded wrong, and a moment at a counter when a clerk chose to look closer. But here is the question that lingers. Was this plot truly Jessie's invention from start to finish? Or was Jessie only the most visible name in a darker chain of people who never entered the bank at all?